Blueberry turtle made with a 40 pin and a 22 pin circular knitting machine. You will need stuffing, 2 kinds of yarn, one in blue, one in green. I did not use full skeins. This was a partial skein, and this was also about half a skein to do the shells. A little tiny bit of pink yarn if you want to do some cheeks, darning needle, and that's about it. And I will show exactly how we do this. First, I'll start with the 40 pin machine. I have my blue yarn, which is for the shell. I have my Fiskars scissors, my electric screwdriver with the power adapter for the Sentro or the Knit Quicks knitting machine. I have my circular knitting machine journal that you can find on Amazon. I'll link it down below. Got the beanie guide, 2 pages for beanies, where I've started my design work here. We're gonna make this turtle, blueberry turtle. So starting with the 40 pin machine, which I have my electric counter. I'll also link this below. I transfer this between all my machines, and I simply just buy a couple extra of these magnetic round pieces and hot glue it to the machine. And I use these command strips so I can transfer it from machine to machine. The way you turn it on is just hold this button down, reset it to 0, like so. Blue yarn for your shell top and the main color, and you will cast on without waste yarn. I have a video on how to cast on if you need a slower demonstration, but start with the black and the white pin. Put your yarn in between about 8 inches and make sure your yarn is underneath the black pin, over the back of the next pin, under the next pin, and around the back of the next pin, and so on. You are rotating between outside of the white pin and then inside the white pin, all the way around your 40 pin knitting machine. At the end, you should come around to the back end of the last white pin, feed it in the yarn feeder, and put some tension on it. I typically like to have it on 2 here so that it's a tighter tension. To go around, make sure you are using a counter of some sort so that you know how many rows you're doing. Continue doing the shell top for a total of 35 rows. If you do have the power adapter, you can go ahead and attach that and use your electric screwdriver. I will link all of these below. This does not overheat your machine. It works perfectly. It goes as fast as I could hand crank. Here I'm at the end of row 35, and I will cast off. So grab your scissors, cut off about 18 inches of yarn with your scissors. Grab your bent tip darning needle. Makes it easier if it's bent tip. Remove this so it's out of the way. Your yarn should be ending between the black and the white pin. Take it off from the feeder and go around. After the black pin, you're going to insert your needle in between those two little pieces there and thread your yarn through. So you're picking up this loop. It's going to come off the machine and you're threading your yarn through it. I like to hold the next loop down because sometimes it can come undone, which means you would have a dropped stitch. So this helps prevent having a dropped stitch by just placing your finger onto the next loop, preventing it from coming up. Continue this method of casting off all the way around for 40 total stitches. Make sure you're only grabbing the loop up there like that, pulling the yarn through. When you get to where you no longer have loops to pull up, you'll have to crank around some more in the same direction you've been going in order to pick up more of your loops. Meet you when you get done casting off. You can see here I need to start cranking around because I need to get the pins down. So I'm just going around, get the needles off, and just continue on like so, picking up each loop all the way around. Here are the last 2 loops I need to pick up. Once you do that, it'll be off the machine. This is the shell top. Start cinching up each side gently. Don't close the hole all the way though, because you will be folding one end in on itself. Just kind of close it up a little. Just make sure all of the stitches are facing the right way there. What you'll need to do next for the shell top and the shell bottom, just draw your yarn in through to the other side, now doubled, and cinch the inside tube tight. Secure it with a knot. Grab the other side, also secure it tight. Secure it with the knot, and you will tie those 2 ends together. That's the top of your shell. I'll go ahead and let you do that, or you can, I like to use a darning needle and kind of go around these loops one more time just to really cinch it in place, and then tighten a knot to make the top shell of your turtle. And I tie the 2 ends into a knot to doubly secure it. You're going to do the shell bottom. And you want to use a different color for your shell bottom, or you can use the same, but we will not be needing this for a little while. For the shell bottom, you will need the 40 pin machine again. Do the exact same thing you did for the shell top, except you will only need to make a total of 20 rows. The next step is to make 4 legs with your 22 pin machine. Grab your brown yarn or whatever color you're going to use for the legs. Cast on like you normally would. In and out of every other needle. Reset your counter to 0. Start cranking out. With the leg, you will do 10 rows. Grab your scissors, cut off the length of yarn so you can cast off of your machine. And cast off like you normally would. Grabbing each loop around the machine to cast off. After that, I'll show you how we cinch it tight so that it's a little bit smaller than it normally would be, and seam it, and then those will be your 4 legs. Once you take your foot off of the circular knitting machine, pull each end tight. Like that. You can see how each end is cinched tight. I did not double it up. Take the shorter end. I use the longer end to sew it onto the body. So you take your shorter end. I like to knot it just once or twice maybe to secure it in there. And then what you'll do is fold it in half and start sewing the 2 halves together to make it a little more compact. And just make sure you're going down the same rows all the way down. All 10 rows. So I'm just going back and forth like so. These 2 stitches, not pulling it too tight, it's not too loose, just kind of tug, snug. And I'm making sure I'm staying in the same row to pick up all 10 of those stitches. Knot it to this side to secure it. Again, make it snug but not too tight or else it'll start to form the shape of your foot. So make 4 total of these for its little feet. For the tail, you will use the same color and you will cast on the same way, but you'll only do 5 rows total. I'll meet you and we'll do the tail together, and I'll show you how we shape the tail. When you take the tail off the machine, you'll probably get something that looks like a big old mess. And you're going to pull on one end to start cinching it, pull on the other end. What you'll need to make sure you do is, see how this one is the purl side out? You want to make sure that you have the right side out for your tail. Pull on each end until you can start to sort it a little better. Just shape that tail up and see how it's curling so that the inside is coming out. So you have to kind of tuck it in and make sure the right side is out. There, now you can see your knitted stitches, not the purl side. And once you start doing that, you should have a cute little nubbin, which is the tail. Again, take your shorter end, because the longer end you'll use to sew onto the shell. Knot it once to ensure it's secured. Just make sure that end is tight, and you can secure that in 2 if you'd like. And the same as the feet, you will go about 5 rows to secure it. There's 1, 2, and then keep working your way down, making sure you're on the same row as you go down. Get a little tight down there. Okay, tie it to the other end piece. Snug, not too tight. There's your little tail nubbin. See how big it is compared to the foot. Lastly, we're going to do the head here. For the head, you'll want to cast on and do 20 rows, and you'll double the head and cinch it. So do your 20 rows and I'll show you how we do the head. Here is the head. Again, that was 20 rows, casting on with the main color, no waste yarn. Start slowly cinching one side, making sure that it is the right side out, and you will draw one end in on the other in order to double it up. So here's that end. pull it through, and now it's doubled up. So on the inside tube, tighten that up, secure it, tighten this one up on the outside, make sure the holes are pretty small, and then double secure it with your needle and string or your yarn as needed to make sure that there's no gap there. Now I'm just going to knot the two ends. I think it's pretty good. Knot the two ends together. What we'll do next is shape the head. What I'm doing here is just, like I said, making sure it's extra secure by going through the center and knotting it once more for extra security of that hole. Ensure it's really closed up. Okay, so what you'll do now is you can cut this yarn because you'll need it for closing up the head. I'll just use a little bit there. Close up this head, grab one of your pieces of yarn that you just cut off, thread your needle, and kind of just stretch this out so that you know that it's as even as possible. What you're trying to do here is get to the bottom edge, which is where you're going to weave this yarn in and out every other stitch. So those two, and then you skip two, you pick up two, just leave this length there, skip two, pick up two, skip two, pick up two, all the way around. Basically making a drawstring for your turtle head to draw it tight, just shape it into the head. Of course, before you do that, we're going to add a little polyfill, see how we like it, place our eyes where we think they'll look the best, and then we'll take the polyfill back out, secure our eyes to the turtle's face, add the polyfill again, and then secure this. Now, if you did it right, you should end up where you'll have two before this first hole you started. So what I do is just go through one to make sure that your string is in the same hole that you started with. There you go. And just even it out. Grab your polyfill, fill your head a little bit, tighten it up just so it's in shape. Grab your eyes. I have these blue colors, 16 millimeters that I got on Amazon. I'll link, and just put them where you think it would look cute on the turtle. I have it blue because I am making a blueberry turtle. So you will need the 22 pin again one more time with your blue yarn to make the blueberry top. So just place your eye where you think it should go. And then we'll take the polyfill out and add the backings to our safety eyes. Okay, pop that out. Or where they should be. Grab your backing. If you don't know how to use safety eye backings, shape it where the flat part's up against the hat or the turtle's head and the round part's up. And then just press down on it to secure it. And the other side, same way. Now, if it's tough, you can grab your auxiliary tool to get the safety eyes on there better. And it just pops it in there. So with that tool, I was able to lock it in place really well. His eyes aren't going anywhere. Now go ahead and start stuffing it. If you want to add a little smile, you can. You can add a little pink to its cheeks. Grab your pink yarn and your needle. I have a little bit of scrap yarn left over here. Pull it through the back end. Add little cheeks as you like. Secure that, cut it, and do the same on the other side. There you have it. A little bit of pink to add some color to his face. Grab your two ends. Make sure you don't lose those drawstrings. Stuff your head and we'll cinch it tight. Make sure it's stuffed pretty tight. Grab your drawstring ends, tighten them, tie them up, secure it. After you tie it, you'll probably see a little bit of a gap. I just take my needle, wind the yarn around a couple of stitches, and now tie it tight. And it will start closing up any sort of gap you may have in your holes. I usually have to do this maybe 2 or 3 times to make sure that the gap is fully gone before I'm happy with it. Of course, you are sewing this onto the shell, so you may not even see it, but you can see I've done it once and there's still a little bit of a gap there. So I'll go back around to this side and just kind of weave it in and out and then tie it one more time here. And then I'll have to attach it to the shell next. See? Can't see it now. Make sure you know which way is up for your turtle. Usually the pink is the cheeks. Don't forget, grab your blue yarn on your 22 pin machine, cast on with the blue yarn, and knit 10 rows, and I'll show you what we do then. Here's the piece for the blueberry topper. Grab the 2 ends, cinch them, and you'll make sure you secure them, because what you'll do is actually flatten it out like this. But before you flatten it out, I need you to secure the ends and tie around here a couple times, make sure that doesn't come undone. Same with here. Tie it around a couple times here to make sure that doesn't come undone. Grab the yarn and the darning needle. I like to go around a couple times, go through a few of these loops, and then tie it off here. Make sure it's secured and knotted. Same with this end, do the same exact thing. Grab the short end and thread your needle. Now flatten out like a pancake. Go through the center, the other side. Tie the 2 ends together. Then you have this little piece. That's going to be your blueberry topper. Secure it to the top here. Grab the yarn end, tie it to the top of your shell. I'll just simply sew it on there so to make it the blueberry shape. You will go ahead and start sewing on your head and your feet and your tail all to the shell. It's going to be like this. I like to work this way though. Grab your pins and start pinning where you want your feet, head, and the tail to be before you start sewing it on. I'm just going to show you my process of how I sew everything on. I just finished the blueberry topper. You just kind of go back and forth till you think it's where you like it to be. I probably did 4 different anchor points there, and I'll just tie it securely to the bottom here. Once that's done, that's your blueberry topper. Now, like I mentioned, grab your pins, your stitch markers, or whatever it is you use. I'll put the tail on first. I'm going to just pick a spot to start with. That'll be the tail, and I fold it in half. So now that's where the head will go, right there, middle of the head. And you got your 4 feet. So these are the middles here. This is not where the feet are going. This is just indicating where the middle is, here and here. So you have tail, head. Now your feet are going to go in the middle of these other places here. So fold it in half again. Line up your stitch markers like so. And that is where, let me grab my stitch markers here. That is where one of the feet will go, and the other one is right here. Next, right here and here. Stick with the reds. That one right there, and over here. Remove the extra pieces. You have your tail here, your head, and your 2 feet on each side. I'm going to start with the tail first. What I did here was I basically started at the base of the tail, picked up, you know, the same 2 so that it lines up. See, here's the base and here's the top of the shell. Picked up stitches so it lines up. Went around the bottom of the feet, continued along. And when I got to the head though, I did sew it to the actual head itself, as you can see here, to just more firmly secure that head to the entire turtle shell and turtle body, and sew them back to here where I'm on my last 2 stitches on the head, and what I'm going to do is actually pick up these next 2 stitches, or next stitch, pull it through, and you just kind of pick up your 2 stitches there, or your stitch I mean, and continue drawing it back and forth. And because they are the same size 22 pin machine, it should line up at the end so that you have your turtle like so, your blueberry turtle. Once you get to near the last foot and the last quarter of your turtle, start stuffing it with your polyfill, or whatever type of stuffing you have. Sometimes using old yarn scraps could be nice, or maybe you have an old something else like that, but if you have polyfill, use your polyfill. Start stuffing your turtle as you sew it around, and right before you get to the end there, just keep stuffing it to make sure it's the right thickness and amount of stuffing you want. Now this is my starting end, so I'm leaving that out because I'm going to tie it to that and then weave that piece in at the very end. That's why that piece is staying out, but you noticed all the other pieces I've kept on the inside to make it easier for me, so I don't have to weave anything in except for this one right here. And now you can see how seamless it is when you just line up the stitches to get from the bottom to the top, and you'll be able to make sure that you have the same amount of stitches, so it all sews up perfectly. Even though it is a smaller, the base is smaller than the top of the shell, it has the same amount of stitches around, being on a 22 pin machine. So that'll be able to create that shape for your turtle.